We were talking about regularity, timing, and all these things, and quality and quantity. But one of the things I learned from your work is that that last hour is potentially the most important hour of me being in bed. And I say this in part because my girlfriend, she would have about six hours, 6.5 hours sleep. She sleeps very, very well, perfect sleeper. But she'd always get up really, really, really early. And in part, that was because of the guilt that I talked about. But I had a conversation with her about the guilt, and I said, just stay in bed as long as you need to stay in bed. Like, just have that extra 8th hour. And in part, that's because I learned that the further we go in sleep, the more REM we're getting.
Yeah.
Okay, can you explain that to me with these 4 blocks? Why that last hour is particularly important, and why we shouldn't be jumping out of bed, or why we should be using certain sleep devices to wake us up when we're at the end of that last hour of REM?
Absolutely. So here we have the 4 blocks of sleep. So when we first fall asleep, we go into light, non-rapid eye movement sleep, stage 1. This is the stage of sleep that if I wake you up out of it, you say, I wasn't sleeping. Now, it's just that you're just in that transitional phase, this beautiful liminal state between the windows of wakefulness and true sleep. So this is your bridge between the waking world and the sleep world, and it doesn't last for very long, maybe just 10 or 15 minutes at tops. Then you get into the workhorse of sleep. This is stage 2 non-REM sleep. 50% of your night is spent in stage 2 non-REM sleep. I don't like the word light non-REM sleep. I've often used it, but it's not really, we do a lot of cognitive processing in stage 2 non-REM sleep. It's good stuff. It's not just the stage that you have to go through from sort of, deep non-REM sleep to go back to stage 2 in order for you to get to REM, but I'll come to that. So we have fallen asleep 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Now we're in stage 2 non-REM sleep. We'll stay there for about 15 or 20 minutes. Then, if it's in the first couple of hours of the night, we go down into the very deepest stages of deep non-REM sleep. This is where the brainwave patterns slow down, but the brainwaves become incredibly big, huge, big, powerful, slow brainwaves. This is where you get an enormous amount of restoration, recovery of many of your major physiological systems.
So then, physical recovery.
Physical recovery, but mental too.
Yeah.
It's during deep sleep that you take newly minted memories that you've learned and you hit the save button on those memories so that you don't forget. Deep sleep essentially is going to future-proof the information that you just learned today. It transfers information from a short-term storage vulnerable reservoir to a more permanent long-term storage site. It's during deep non-REM sleep when we have this communication. So think of those deep, powerful, slow brainwaves like long-wave radio station when you used to tune into a radio station in a car. You get huge ability for information transfer across long distances, across huge paths in the brain. It's amazing. So we've gone from light non-REM, then we go down into deep non-REM. We'll stay there for about 15 or 20 minutes. Then we'll start to rise back up again. We'll go back into stage 2 non-REM sleep.
Wait, we've gone from 1, 2, 3 to 2.
Yes. So we've gone, think about it more almost like a roller coaster ride. So we go from light non-REM, and then we go down into stage 2 non-REM. Yeah. Then we go down into deep sleep. And then we're going to rise back up into light stage 2 non-REM sleep. We're going to stay there. And after about 70, 80 minutes, you're going to pop up and you'll have a short REM sleep period.
Oh, okay, like this.
And this is beautiful. So this is what we call a hypnogram.
I'll put this on the screen for anyone.
Lovely. So what I'm describing here is this roller coaster ride. So we've fallen asleep, light stage 1 non-REM, go down into stage 2, then you go down and you have a heavy period of deep non-REM slow wave sleep, stage 3. And that's what you see on your sleep tracker as deep sleep. This is light sleep, this is deep sleep. Stage 2 non-REM sleep, light sleep, stage 3 non-REM sleep, deep sleep. But then you'll start to climb back up, and then you may pop up and you'll have a short REM sleep period here after about 70 or 80 minutes. So you'll have about 10 minutes of REM sleep, and then back down you go again. You go down into non-REM sleep, and then up into REM, down into non-REM sleep, and you'll go up into REM, down into non-REM sleep and up into REM. So what's interesting, however, is that the ratio of non-REM to REM changes. Now, there's a myth out there, and it's a bit of a problem. We humans have a 90-minute average non-REM to REM cycle. So we go down into non-REM sleep and then up into REM sleep every 90 minutes. Then we go back down into non-REM sleep and then up into REM sleep. So we go down into non-REM sleep and then up into REM in this 90-minute cycle. The problem is that it's on average 90 minutes. It ranges from 70 minutes to up to 120 minutes from one individual to the next. So, these devices that you may have seen try to sort of, entrepreneurship, they say, I'm going to wake you up at the ideal moment in your 90-minute cycle so that this thing that sits on my bedside, I tap it when the lights go out, and then it's going to go on its 90-minute cycle, and it's going to figure out the perfect moment to wake you up. It's nonsense, because my sleep cycle may be 75 minutes, yours may be 105 minutes. It's got no idea because it's using a hard-coded 90-minute cycle. It's in some ways nonsense. But we go down into non-REM sleep and up into REM sleep every 90 minutes. What changes, however, is the ratio of non-REM to REM within those 90-minute cycles as you move across the night, such that in the first half of the night, the majority of those 90-minute cycles are comprised of lots of deep non-REM sleep and very little REM sleep. But as you push through to the second half of the night, now that seesaw balance shifts over and you spend much more of your time in REM sleep in the second half of the night, and particularly, just as you said, in the last 2 hours of the night. Why is this consequential? Well, just as you said, and you spoke about for your girlfriend, let's say that, I normally go to bed for argument's sake, and I'm not saying this is the ideal time, but I go to bed at midnight to make the math easy, and I wake up at 8. But tomorrow I've got to catch my flight back home. So I'm going to wake up 2 hours early. So I'm going to wake up at 6 rather than 8. I've lost 2 hours of sleep. So how much total sleep have I lost? Well, I've lost 25% of my total sleep. 2 hours of my 8 hours, 25%. Well, yes and no. I've lost 25% of my total sleep, but I may have lost 50, 60, 70% of all of my REM sleep. Why? Because REM sleep comes in the second half, and then particularly those last couple of hours of sleep. So that's why it's not just academic that you understand the sleep cycle relationship, but it's also pragmatic because it can impact the amount. In fact, the easiest way, if people said, how can I get more REM sleep? I would say just sleep 15 minutes later into the day than you normally would do, and you will disproportionately bias yourself towards getting significantly more REM sleep.
And why does REM sleep matter?
REM sleep is a brain state, firstly, that is incredibly active. In fact, some parts of the brain, particularly if I were to show you these deep emotional centers of the brain, as I pull this brain apart. So we've got these sort of deep emotional centers in the brain that sit, and in fact, they're more just underneath in here, tucked inside, just next to your brainstem at the top of it. And these emotional centers are called the amygdala, and you have one on the left and one on the right side of your brain. That part of the brain, together with a memory structure that runs alongside it called the hippocampus, those two parts of the brain form what we call the limbic system. And you may have heard of the limbic system, so the emotional centers of the brain. Those can be up to 40% more active when you're in dream sleep than when you're awake.
Dream sleep.
Dream sleep is rapid eye movement sleep.
REM sleep.
So REM sleep is the stage. Now, it depends on how you define dreaming. If you define dreaming as any mental activity reported upon awakening, then you dream in all stages of sleep, light non-REM sleep, deep non-REM sleep. So what would that sound like? Well, if I woke you up and said, Stephen, just tell me what was going through your head. And you said, well, I was just thinking about the next time you're going to come in and wake me up. That's just a dream thought. Most people think of dreams as the dreams that we have from REM sleep, from rapid eye movement sleep. That's why we call it dream sleep. Dreams from rapid eye movement sleep are florid, they're narrative. In fact, last night when you fell asleep and you went into dream sleep, you became incredibly psychotic.
Excuse me.
Now, before you reject my diagnosis of your nighttime psychosis, let me give you 5 good reasons. When you went into dream sleep last night, you started to see things which were not there. So you were hallucinating. Second, you believed things that couldn't possibly be true. So you were delusional. Third, you became confused about time, place, and person. So in psychiatry, we call that being disorientated. Fourth, you had wildly fluctuating emotions, something that we call being emotionally labile. You're all over the place. And then how wonderful, you and I, because I'll include myself now as being psychotic, you and I, we both woke up this morning and we forgot most, if not all, of that dream experience. So we're suffering from amnesia. If you were to experience any one of those 5 symptoms whilst you're awake, you'd be seeking some degree of psychological help. But for reasons that we're only now understanding, it seems to be a normal biological and psychological process. So what are the reasons? Why do we dream? We dream for at least 2 different reasons. The first reason is emotional first aid. REM sleep is what I've defined as overnight therapy. And it's during dream sleep where your brain takes difficult, painful emotional experiences and it acts like a nocturnal soothing balm. And it just takes the sharp edges off those difficult, painful experiences so that you come back the next day and you have a memory of an emotional event, but it's no longer emotional. You don't have that same visceral regurgitation of that same emotional charge. Why is REM sleep able to do this overnight therapy, this depotentiation? Why is REM sleep able to sort of strip the bitter emotional rind from the informational orange, as it were? The reason is the following. Dream sleep, REM sleep, is the only time during the 24-hour period where the brain shuts off a stress-related neurochemical called noradrenaline. Now, you've heard of the sister chemical downstairs in your body called adrenaline. Well, upstairs in the brain, we don't have adrenaline, we have noradrenaline. REM sleep is the only time where it's completely shut off. And what we put forward is a theory called overnight therapy, where your brain has, as I told you, these emotional centers and these memory centers, the emotional centers, the amygdala, the memory centers, the hippocampus. You reactivate those structures when you go into dream sleep. So your brain gets the chance to reactivate and replay and reprocess emotional experiences. However, it's doing it in a quote unquote safe neurochemical environment because that stress chemical of noradrenaline is completely shut off. So it's the ideal neurochemical therapy for stripping the emotion from the memory. And we put forward a theory that perhaps the quintessential disorder where this fails is PTSD. Because when you speak to those patients, not only do we see that their REM sleep is disrupted, when you speak to those patients, they will say, look, I just can't, quote unquote, get over the event. What they mean by that is the war veteran who is now going to the supermarket and they come outside and they're in the car park and the car backfires and they instantly have the flashback to the sort of detonation on the military field. And what's happening there is that the brain has not stripped the emotion from the memory. So every time they relive the memory, they regurgitate that same emotional reaction. So no wonder we proposed that the brain then comes back the following night and says, look, I'm sorry, sleep. I've still got this trauma memory. Can you do your trick of stripping the emotion from the memory? And it fails again. So the next night it comes back and says, I'm sorry to bother you, but I've still got this emotionally charged memory. Please do your trick of stripping the emotion from memory. It fails again. This sounds like the broken record of repetitive nightmares that we see in PTSD. Why could this be happening? Levels of noradrenaline in the brain in patients with PTSD are too high. And I was at a conference some years ago where I was presenting this theory. We just presented this theory. It was a theory, and it was in search of data. And it turns out at the same conference, it was one of those incredible moments, you get hairs on the back of your neck. There was a psychiatrist from Puget Sound, which is just outside of Seattle on the west coast of America. And he had been treating his war veterans in the Veterans Administration with a blood pressure medication called prazosin. Now, it turns out that prazosin, it's a generic drug because it's the Veterans Administration, so it's cheap, and it crosses the blood-brain barrier. When prazosin gets into the brain, one of the things that it does is shut down levels of noradrenaline. Why was this interesting? What he was perplexed by is that he was saying, I'm giving this blood pressure medication to my war veterans with PTSD. It's not helping too much with their blood pressure, but they're all coming back saying all of those repetitive nightmares, they're starting to go away, and I'm sleeping better and I'm feeling better. What he had done was inadvertently treated their high levels of noradrenaline, which were preventing the brain from kind of stop dropping those levels of noradrenaline down and processing the emotion from the memory. It was too high in those PTSD patients, but by treating them with this drug, he'd inadvertently brought the levels of noradrenaline down during REM sleep. And then it ultimately became one of the only prescribed medications in the Veterans Administration for repetitive nightmares. Because why? The brain had finally got down into a quote unquote safe chemical state because noradrenaline was too high, but he treated them with this drug. So he had data that was in search of a theory. I had a theory that was in search of clinical data. And so I raced to him after he gave his presentation. I said, I think I know why you're finding what you're finding. I flew him down to Berkeley. We spent all day together, went out for dinner together. And as I said, ultimately, he went on to do clinical trials. And it's not a cure-all for everyone, by the way. It doesn't work for everyone. And I would say that there is now a better treatment for nightmares if you're suffering from nightmares. And it's called image rehearsal therapy, or IRT. And it works through an incredible mechanism of memory that we actually had discovered about, 20 years ago now, called memory reconsolidation. So when you learn information, it would be, let's take a Word document. Wouldn't it be daft if you opened up a Word document, you started typing in, all this information, you hit save, and then you come back tomorrow and you double click on the document and Word has shut you out. You can't edit the document. That's a really bad information storage system. It's a bad idea. Your human memories are just like this. You form new memories, then you sleep and you save them. But when you come back and you reactivate that memory, when you recall a memory, you bring it back into this opened up state. It's like double clicking on the memory, and the memory becomes fragile and malleable once again. So you can update and edit that memory. And then the next night you resave it. It's called reconsolidation. So the first night I save it, that's consolidation. Then I reactivate it, I modify it, and then the next night I reconsolidate it. So coming back to nightmares, it turns out that you can do this with trauma patients who have nightmares caused by trauma. For example, let's say that you got into a horrific road accident and you went through, your brakes failed, you went through the red light, you got T-boned. It was just traumatic. It was all traumatic. And what you do with the therapist, because you're having these repetitive nightmares of reliving that same car crash every night, you work with them and you tell them the dream. You recall the dream actively out loud. But then working with a therapist, what you do is you modify the outcome. So instead of me saying the brakes failed, now in the new scenario with your therapist, you say, well, you look down and there's a manual handbrake in the car. So you realize that you can actually just gradually start applying the handbrake and you bring the car to a safe halt and you go to the side of the road and there's no accident. And what you're doing is you're reopening back up that trauma memory and you're rewriting the narrative. And then you sleep and you update that memory. And by recalling and rewriting the memory each and every waking day, you end up dissipating the severity of your trauma nightmare every single night. And it's called image rehearsal therapy for nightmares. It's incredibly powerful. It's probably more powerful than the prazosin drug that I spoke about.
And I'm guessing people don't sleep and also have nightmares for a variety of reasons relating to trauma generally.
It's a good question perhaps, which is in some ways, what's the difference between a bad dream and a nightmare? Mm-hmm. Because all of us will have bad dreams. Bad dreams are usually things that happen infrequently. Maybe you have them once every month, every couple of months.
Yeah.
The definition of nightmare disorder is that you have to have these dreams frequently, maybe at least twice a week. They have to wake you up out of your sleep and you have vivid recall. Plus, it has to cause you some kind of daytime distress where you're not feeling good about the day. It's causing you mental anguish. And furthermore, if it starts to lead to hopelessness or a sense that your life is not worth living, you absolutely need to go and see someone. And here's what we've discovered about nightmares. Short sleep duration, not getting enough sleep, sleeping less than 6 hours, predicts by about 100 to 150% higher percentage chance of you having suicidal thoughts, attempting suicide, or tragically, suicide completion. That's bad sleep. It turns out that nightmares, so if short sleep has 150% higher likelihood of suicidality, having nightmares has an 800% higher likelihood of suicidal tendencies associated with it. Now, we don't think that nightmares are causing suicidal tendencies. That's not what we believe. We believe, however, nightmares, much more than disrupted sleep, nightmares seem to be the canary in the coal mine. Nightmares are this distress beacon that leaks from our electrical static of sleep at night, and it is incredibly sensitive to your suicidal tendencies, your suicidal attempts, and as I said, suicide completion as well. Nightmares are a biomarker. If you are having distressing nightmares that are waking you up, you need to go and speak to someone about it. It's absolutely paramount because there are good, effective ways that you can dissipate those nightmares.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.